Since the beginning, Halo was about Master Chief and Cortana, partners protecting humanity. But that is now a distant memory. Humanity is fighting for survival. The Banished have risen, defeated our heroes, and taken control of the mysterious Zeta Halo.
The Halo Infinite campaign trailer was finally shown today, and I think it couldn't come at a better time because in the past, Halo Infinite was starting to mirror its namesake. The game has more problems and conspiracies than most presidential assassinations. It's been partly removed, added to, taken back, split, adjusted, 2 or 3 delays later, multiplayer and single player split, and then co-op actually removed from the release, and the possibility of someone to listen and see this subtitle and think to themselves, that's just some kind of mean joke, isn't that far-fetched. Today, we finally got to see some single-player content, though, and 6 minutes later and watching it multiple times, I have to say, certainly do feel better about what 343 Industries is doing. But I'd like to know what you guys think of the trailer. What did you like? What did you dislike? What excited you? I know that I've talked prior about some of the things that have depressed me. For example, I talked about co-op being removed and a bunch of Halo apologists, probably fresh from fighting for Destiny 2 to cut more content and ripe with a desire for somehow all of us to thank them for it, came and informed me that no one even knew co-op was in the original games and no one knew co-op was even a thing. But today we saw this trailer and a lot of what I saw looked just exactly like what a lot of us were hoping for. Halo, a step up graphically for sure from the very poor showing that they had in the past. It has a nice solid image overall and not a lot of drawing or pop-in that we actually see in this trailer. It showed a world that you could easily mistake many of the Halos prior for. But if you watch closely or listen closely, not only did Microsoft drop about 1,000 story hints, but they also airdropped a ship for us to fly around and look in, and you could see that there was the ability for you to grab different kinds of vehicles. This is a reminder that this Halo is like prior Halos that were good at least, and we get to see, of course, our plucky sidekicks. You know, a game's character, Cortana, is really strong when their removal, at least a smaller role in this title, requires 2 wisecracking sidekicks to replace her. It doesn't seem to stretch out of the original 1, 2, 3 and the way that those Halos were actually delivered. And even the Halo installation 07, which is named Zeta Halo later, just looks like one of the larger Halos destroyed in the past. This was one of the 7 rings in the Halo array, and it was massive prior to a large part of it being destroyed. This is going to set the stage for Infinite's main game, the single player, as well as the content coming out after release that we're hearing about. And those will feed into that sort of slightly Ubisoft open kind of style world that we saw some footage of today, and I'll talk about here in a second. Now, the trailer also talks about the open world nature of this new Halo, with Master Chief able to go about defeating the Banished any way he wants. This is interesting, as Halo 1 also offered a tiny bit of choice there when you landed on the original Halo and you went through some of those first couple forts and locations. I still believe that's one of the better game startings that I've played in a long time. That flexibility and form and sort of coming to grips with everything in that open area location in the original Halo is something that stuck with me forever. So I like this idea, at least the idea. This somewhat open land Halo could be interesting, especially if you can just order Banshees and other craft to ride around so that travel isn't necessarily completely on foot, which is something that's actually come up a couple times in the later Halos. Now, one of the main story elements, of course, is a continuation of the Cortana campaign and to really find out what's happened to her over all this time, being teamed up with this new AI and, like I said, your plucky pilot. We also saw various different examples of not only the vehicles themselves, the weapons, but different ecological systems that I started to notice. But at the same time, as you see all of these different animals and creatures and you see the various different places that the Banished are, you also see a cycle of a little bit of a Ubisoft thing starting to come up here, which was where you saw the Master Chief come up to a base, look at the base, and sort of identify different parts to it. It's going to be highly frustrating if this game ends up coming down to nothing just but strongholds and towers to take over. It's something that I certainly wouldn't want to see. We also get to see the world's slowest grappling hook. I don't know what's going on here, but every time he grapples onto an enemy, it just looks terrible. The movement around the game world, I think, looks awesome, and as a Halo fan, I have no issue really with the grappling hook overall. It's just slow. When you add in these kind of displays of aerobatics that we see here, which I absolutely adore, and you have the fact that multiplayer is separate and single player launching December and co-op coming at some later times, I do think that they turned up the bombastic feel of this and started to show us a couple things I was a little bit not prepared for. Not only did they show us enemies that we haven't seen before, but I think they were hinting, and I could be wrong about this, but I think they were hinting that we may be seeing some kind of thing where in each stronghold or in each location, we have a mini boss kind of battle of some kind. Depending how many of those there are, these could be really poignant moments that sort of offset the Master Chief moving so long through that open world location and actually give it a nice bookend, especially when you see him leaping off towers and jumping into things. There's a lot of mobility here that we didn't necessarily see from the Master Chief in the past, but it certainly was hinted at. Another thing that was hinted at, and certainly you can see in the Halo wikis and stuff, is that people have lived on this Halo before, and I'm wondering if there's going to be small towns, and I don't mean towns like people buying and selling like a Skyrim town, but some kind of outpost with a lot of people there. And because the Banished have not only Covenant on their side, but in the past have humans, it's going to be quite intense to see exactly what Master Chief has to face off against, because you not only have these various different characters that they're showing, but of course you have the flora and fauna itself, which have been demonstrated in the prior games to great effect, I personally believe. Now, the multiplayer beta met with positive press pretty much overall, and we see that here as well. While it's disjointed, I think that's done purposely to just give you a call back to those prior Halo events and campaigns that have really made this series great, which is 1, 2, and 3. It'll be gutting to not play this with others day one for sure, at least for me, but I want to know what you guys think about all that you saw in this. If you sort of take a moment and watch through this trailer, watch some of the different stuff that they've dropped, it's not only what they showed, it's what they showed and what they said and what they didn't show between some of the cuts that makes me feel like this may have that kind of influence that we've seen in Ubisoft style titles. Now, I don't want people to think that I'm stating, oh my God, it's just going to be Far Cry in space. That's not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that there may be a familiarity there, especially when you start to look at some of those slower parts, and it certainly does look like Master Chief's going to multiple strongholds and locations and basically taking down not only a main guy, but possibly some kind of installation battery or gun. And I hope that doesn't break up the feeling of fluidity that we've always had in the Halo games. That was really brought about by two different things: the dynamic AI that has been so great in the Halo titles, as well as the dynamics of an open/closed world that we have. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you have the linear feeling of a lot of the locations in Halo, but you have the dynamic AI, and you also have 2, 3, maybe 4 different ways to go, as well as very large open areas for you to battle in. With the Master Chief able to use these new things like the grappling hook, what will the enemy be able to use? Well, we've certainly seen jetpacks. That's going to be awesome. And I would love to see some jetpack versus grappling action. That'll be great. But will it be something where you go to each base and you sort of identify, here's what you need to do and here's where you need to go in? Those were some of, at least to me, the worst parts of the past Halos, when you felt like you were directed to sort of go 1, 2, 3 versus, hey, here's an open area. You probably need to go to the other side of it. And you could just sort of identify how you wanted to do it without having to stop at any one place to sort of collect stronghold number 1 or stronghold number 2. We'll just have to see as this comes closer to its December release date. What I saw in this single player trailer, though, I did like. 1, 2, and 3 are my favorite Halos. I didn't mind 4 and 5 nearly as much as a lot of people. A lot of people hated them. I do feel that it's unfortunate this game won't have co-op, because that dynamic feel, and maybe that's one of the actual repercussions of this open world, is that they just couldn't get those memory constraints together for co-op. But I do feel that that's going to be a huge missing link. Again, at least for me. So pipe off in the comments. What do you think? What did you see in this? I would love for you to be able to tell me. Go ahead and note down any particular time in the trailers of what you saw. You guys will see us on the podcast, of course, at the end of this week talking about it. You're going to see more reviews from me. You're going to see another Meet Your Heroes. You, of course, should have seen this morning's review for Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a huge surprise to me. That was a phenomenal game compared to what I thought it was going to be, and a very good game in its own right. But being surprised is always nice. And there was a lot of leeway that no one was going to give these guys. You're going to look at this game and you're going to be like, man, what did they deliver in all on their own? It doesn't matter if Avengers sucks. It doesn't matter if Avengers was good. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy by itself. How is this game? And you sit down and play it and find out, damn, it's not bad. Age of Empires also released, and while you won't see a review from me, at least right away, I have enjoyed every single bit that I've been playing. That's it for me. I hope you guys have an awesome time. Subscribe. Peace out.